And we're seeing attendees join, so we're going to give it a couple of more minutes here and then we'll get started. All right, and we're continuing to see attendees join, but we're going to go ahead and get started since we're a couple of minutes past the hour here. I'm just going to switch my screen share over where we'll have a look at the agenda, what we're going to cover today. But thank you everybody for joining our event on how to operationalize the project status hub. So for this webinar, we're going to spend most of our time in the VividCharts product itself. But we'll just set the stage and give a little bit of context to what you're going to see in the product today with a couple of intro slides. Least important of those is just a quick intro. Me, Rob Walsh, one of the founders here at VividCharts. So I'm going to be driving for the presentation today. More important is what we're going to cover in a little bit of context on the product that you're going to be seeing today. So VividCharts is a certified elite technology partner of ServiceNow. It does live entirely in the ServiceNow platform. So customers of ours just install their plugin, our plugin directly into their ServiceNow instance and get updates that we put out with our release cycle automatically at their leisure. So to give a little bit of context on the problem we're going to talk about today around project status reporting, the broader problem is more around reporting that's taking place outside of the ServiceNow platform. So we collect data on this pretty frequently, actually, and we know through those surveys that 97% of ServiceNow customers are actually pulling data out of the platform for reporting purposes. So at the highest level, that's what we really try and solve for customers. How do we make more reporting and more data consumption happen in the platform itself and in a customer's environment? So we can conceptualize that with our product with the data engagement platform. So that's what you're going to be seeing a walkthrough of today. As we think about operationalizing the project status hub for a client or for a PMO, there's really three key steps that we're going to step through. The first is establishing the standard format and data points that live on that status report. So we're going to spend some time in the VividCharts editor showing how we actually build out a template to establish that standard. The second step is to produce that standard at scale for all of the projects within your ServiceNow instance. So we're going to show you the interface to configure that and also what it looks like after you've produced that at scale so that you can use it in different operational scenarios. So project status reports get sent out as one-offs by project managers, end up in stakeholder inboxes, get used in big bundled presentations at steering committee meetings. So there's a lot of different operational scenarios where project status reports actually get used. So we're going to show you in our product how we facilitate some of those and kind of what we've learned from our clients on those scenarios. And we talked a little bit about data leaving the platform for broad ServiceNow reporting use cases, but for project status reports, what we encounter most is manual PowerPoint creation via either copy and paste or just screenshotting visuals from ServiceNow itself to end up in a PowerPoint slide deck. And what we hear from PMOs as they're evaluating with us and really planning how they're going to operationalize the product for their PMO, what they tell us is, we've invested a lot in ServiceNow. And when we go and do this manual effort, it's really diminishing the power of the platform and devaluing the investment that we've made in it. So again, when we think about how to operationalize, we're trying to deliver more value out of that existing investment. And that's why we're committed to being in the platform for this process. We also hear about, going to BI teams, which comes with, different hidden costs in terms of setup, data quality, and, the refresh cadence itself. So, when you're doing things in the platform, you're getting the freshest data, you're able to make updates and refresh on the fly, which you'll see. And, when you use PowerPoint as exports in your steering committee meetings, you're just gonna, create a less efficient and less data fresh experience for everyone involved. So as we walk through the product today, we're going to look at how we deploy better reporting out of the ServiceNow platform. How do we make it quick to implement, native to ServiceNow, and provide those experiences so that you can use the reports in different operational scenarios. Okay. Once we achieve this, these are the outcomes that we hear after the fact. So after you go through this process in your instance, here's what we want to hear and do here from our PMOs that work with us. Our users are adopting ServiceNow more. Again, we've made the big investment and we need to make it more efficient and a better experience to use the platform so they actually adopt it, right? Through the process of automating the reporting outputs, we're actually getting better data quality on the data points that we're tracking, but also as we publish reports out to executives, we're creating more engagement and questions around other data points we could track. So, through the executive visibility and engagement, we're actually driving better data quality on the current data points that are being tracked in ServiceNow, as well as, kind of building out a further roadmap for what other data would be helpful to use on strategic work. So that's where we're going to set the stage with. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen share out here. And we'll jump into the fun part in the product. So got that pulled up and I'll start sharing again here. All right. And we're going to start just in our ServiceNow instance again to just kind of hammer home that everything you're going to see lives in your ServiceNow instance as a customer when you go to actually, roll out this product. So I'll click home on data engagement. It's going to take me into another tab here where you see we've got a full screen UI and takeover within our product, but you'll also see we're still securely in our ServiceNow instance here. So there's a lot of functionality here that we're not going to cover today. We're going to keep the focus on project status reporting in the project status hub. And like we talked about, the first step is establishing that standard. So we're going to go into the editor to do that. So I'll just search for my webinar status report that I did a little bit of prep on, and I'll click the pencil icon to go into the editor here. Now, once we're in here, you're going to see that we have some chart types already on the project status report, but we're going to walk through the creation process of adding new chart types, editing existing chart types, both from a data and styling perspective, as well as doing some modifications to the layout, because those are the things that we're actually working through with our customers as we're going to operationalize this. And something to call out that we've actually learned from our customers who have done this in a really successful manner, it's good to involve your project managers, portfolio managers, and executive stakeholders in this process so that everyone feels an ownership over the end reporting output, right? If you're going to establish a standard, you want everyone to be in agreement on what that standard should look like. So let's get started with some of the editing process here. So I'm going to adjust the zoom a little bit there. And the first thing I'm going to do is, we're VividCharts, so we've got some of our branding applied here in the color schemes, but let's just go ahead and add a logo on here. And we'll choose the VividCharts logo here, and you'll see it's just appeared on our editor, and we can start to drag and drop it wherever we need to. resize it. And as I start to maneuver some of the elements on the editor here, you'll just see it functions a lot like, people are used to in PowerPoint. So that's something that we hear makes the product actually easier to adopt and easier for customers to wield themselves after they go through this initial process. So, we've placed our logo in the top right-hand corner, but just so you can get a sense of some of the other elements on the editor here, you can just see I can select any of these. They're just chart types that, live on the editor. And we also have shape elements here that we can resize and drag and drop and place wherever we need to. So I mentioned configurability from a data and styling standpoint. As we start to look at, what that could look like for existing charts, let's just choose the program chart here. And we'll open the data cog up here just to look at what the configuration process looks like. So when I open that up, I'm going to immediately see some of the chart options available to me. And I can just click over to the data and see where are we actually pulling the data from. So we're pulling from a table, and in this case, the project table, right? So that looks good. But what if we don't use program as a PMO, but we do use portfolio, and that's important to include on a status report? We can make a really easy update. This is just a field selector chart that's pointing at the program field on the project record, but we can update that with just a couple of clicks and no code. So I'll click save. We've selected portfolio. And if I click save on the chart, you'll see that's already updated to show the portfolio as opposed to the program. So configurability from a data standpoint. Let's look a little bit at configurability from a styling standpoint. If I open up our style menu, again, found in the top left-hand corner, you can just kind of see as I toggle through some of the menus we have to control the aesthetics of a given chart type. So you can see we're not using a title on this specific chart type. We're not actually using a label, but we do have the value formatting applied, and it's white text now. But let's say we want to, just update this to black. I can open this up. I've got a VividCharts color palette here, but I can have as many color palettes as I want for my organization. So we'll just choose black just to do a really quick and easy demo of that. And then we can do the same for the label. So we'll turn the label black as well. So if I exit out of that, you'll see, we're now looking at a black header and a black label. So just to keep it consistent, we don't want to go through that process for all of the charts. So we'll just toggle it back and move on to building some new charts. Okay, so configurability from a data standpoint, configurability from a styling standpoint. But what we can also do is just add other visuals to the status report itself. And so we've got a blank space of real estate here in the top left. So let's add a field selector for a really common field that we see customers including on their status report, the executive summary. So we pulled from the project table, but what we can also do is pull from other tables that are related to the project and still produce it at scale. So the executive summary lives on the project status table. So we'll just make that selection, click save. When we go to select our record, I have a status report record number over here on my other screen. I'll just kind of copy that and paste it in here. So that'll be our record that we select. And we just want one field to display here. So we're going to choose the executive summary field and just click save. Once we click save on the chart, it's just going to appear on the editor. And now I can start to control the aesthetics of my new chart in the same way that I did with some of the existing charts. So the first thing I'll do is just kind of, update the layout and amount of space that it's going to take up. And then I'll open up my style menu to really see, what do we want to make this look like? And what's really nice as you're building, you can just look at, apply the styling once on one of the charts and toggle down to the other to see what styles you have applied. So, on the chart right below, we want to make it look just like that. So we're displaying the title, 32 pixel size and bold font. So we'll toggle up here. We'll update to 32 pixels. We'll give it a name. executive summary, and we'll make it bold. So now it looks exactly like the chart below in just a couple of clicks. The text, however, looks a little bit different. So again, let's toggle down here and see what the value looks like. So the value, we're looking at 24 pixels aligned to the left. So let's toggle back up and we'll go 24 pixels aligned to the left. We still have our executive summary label in there, so we'll just toggle that off. And it looks like the last thing we're going to have to do is just remove that border. So I'll close out these two menus and you can see, okay, on the cell colors, we're blank on the color, but we do have a border, so we'll just take that off. And just like that, we've got our executive summary for the latest status report, on the standard status report, and it looks, from a styling perspective, really consistent all across the board. We still have a good amount of real estate here on the right-hand side. So another common chart and data point we see being included on status reports is a list of the upcoming key milestones. So for that, we'll just select our list chart. Again, we'll look at a table, and that lives in the PM project task table. So that's the selection we'll make, and we'll just click save. Now, once you're here, you're seeing with a different chart selection, we're starting to see different options. So you can see we have a standard condition builder up here. So that's useful for more universal dashboards. But for this, we're just looking at a specific project record. So we don't really need to mess with that. How do we want to sort it once it's in the list? The plan start seems to make a lot of sense for our upcoming milestones. And the next thing we're going to do is just add the fields that we want. So we'll just pop open that menu and start to pick which fields do we actually want to include on this. So description's a common one. We'll want to display that one first. We probably want to include the plan start, the planned end, maybe the status. So we've got our fields selected here. And then you're also starting to see at the bottom of the configuration menu, we have a few other options that we didn't see on the other ones. We saw the option to make it clickable or not. So that was on the other chart, and that's consistent across the library. But for the list chart, we also have the option to give users the ability to click to sort on the headers or to paginate the list upon export. So we can export any of our reports to PDF or PowerPoint. And if you have a list that spans longer than what's actually displayed on the screen, you can scroll down if you're in the browser, but if you export, it's going to paginate. So as we build a couple more charts, you'll see some of those other options, and I'll call them out along the way here. But with a couple of clicks, we have a list chart ready here. And actually, we'll add a chart above it. So we'll make it a little bit smaller here, adjust the size, and we'll actually add another chart above this. But before we do that, let's get our styling right. So for this, it's pretty self-explanatory. We'll just take the title off, close that menu out. And then in the header, up top, we have a blue background with white text. So aesthetically, it would look a little bit better if the list chart matched that. So we'll apply that background. Our text is already white. Maybe we can make it bold to make it a little bit easier to read the headers. And maybe we want to make it, 16. What you'll also notice here is, again, this is specific to the list chart, and each of our charts kind of has these fun little options to play around with. Is sometimes the field in the system is actually different than the language that the business uses to discuss these things. So sometimes it could be a languaging thing. Other times it could just be a real estate thing where planned start is taking up a lot of space there. So we can just call that start. Planned end, we'll just call it end. And then you'll see it's going to update on the chart. Now, it's really important to call out that once you make that update in VividCharts, it's not modifying any configurations in your instance. So you're not making any sort of customizations. This is purely used on the end reporting asset. So really important to call that out. But our list chart is looking good. So Let's go ahead and add another chart type up above this. But before we do that, we have this kind of accent shape in the background. So we'll drop that down to be, right around the size of the list and aligned with the other element. And then let's go ahead and add a new chart. And when I go to add this one, I'll just kind of scroll through the library a little bit, just so you can see what else is out there. We're using a lot of project-specific charts. In this report, you can see the health, indicators here, the RIDE Act charts, those are all project-specific. But you'll see a lot of charts in the library that are just universal, data visualizations that you can use for other data types. But as I scroll through, you also see, beyond what you see on the screen here, we have other charts that are specific to other process areas. So program level heat map, portfolio level heat map, a demand state tracker. So as we learn and work with our customers in new process areas, we're continuing to add new charts to the library. So, if anything comes to mind for you, just kind of watching this presentation, we'd love to hear it from you. But for this, let's just go ahead and easy search. We'll pull up the percent complete chart. And the percent complete is going to live on the project table. So we'll make that selection here, click save. And then for the field, pretty straightforward. We're just going to go off of percent complete. And then we'll choose the same project that we're on, the additional office space for Singapore office. Configurations are done. So we'll just click save. And then we'll just start to resize it based on the amount of real estate that we have. Again, a pretty self-explanatory chart type. So we'll just kind of stretch it out. Not much of a need for a title, so we'll take that off. But again, the coloring is a little bit off from the rest of the aesthetics of the report. So we'll open up the progress bar and just give that a nice blue color like the rest of the status report. So now that's on there, but it doesn't have that shape background, so we can do that really quick. We'll open up our menu here, just add a square, get it nice and aligned. Stretch it out the length of everything else that we're working with. And then we just need to style it. So we'll make it white like the rest of them. And then they all have a blue background to give a nice accent with the rest of the report aesthetics. And then it's currently sitting above our chart type here. So we can just bring that or send it to the back, bring the other chart forward. And let's go ahead and make it a little bit taller. And move that back in there. So now we're looking really good. We have a fully populated status report. And the goal here, like this could look very different and does look very different from a customer to customer basis, depending on what data points they're actually using. So, we hear some track financials on projects. Some organizations don't at this point, but maybe will in the future. So, you can just envision different layouts, different data points on here for your organization. But in terms of the demo, to just kind of get out, here's what a standard could look like for an organization. We've shown what that editing experience looks and feels like. But the next step in the process is to then take this standard format and produce it at scale for the organization. So give me one of these for every project in the system every time a PM submits a new status report, which could be weekly or biweekly or whatever that cadence looks like. So to start to get into that next step of the process, and I actually already wired this up for that just for time purposes today, but I'll go ahead and continue on out of here and we'll go back to the main page and we'll just pop open this apps menu here. And so we're looking at how to operationalize the project status hub, but in the menu, you'll see we have, a similar set of solutions for demand, program, portfolio, MSPs. Change is coming soon, which we'll touch on in closing. But today we're going to focus on Project Status Hub. So we'll make that selection. And once it loads, we're going to see a number of actions we can take once you're already set up. But for the purposes of this, we want to actually walk through the configuration process and how easy and lightweight it is. So, again, we can kind of give a quick scroll so you can see some things that are already built in our demo instance. So these will kind of make sense as we walk through the process. But to produce that template at scale, we use a functionality we developed that we call summaries. So we're going to see a little build summary action we can take in the top right, and then it's going to take me to the summary configuration. So we'll start that process and just step through it together here. First step is just to pick our process area. So again, we offer this for other process areas and a growing list at that, but we'll pick project for this. Once I open this up, you'll see we have a number of templates actually already loaded in our system. So we have the ability to not just do multiple process areas, but also have multiple templates at our disposal. So here's our webinar status template, looks like the one that we just built. So we'll make that selection. So I'll select that and go to the next step in the process. The next step is just going to have us pick, like, what does the summary page need to look like based on our audience? And that's important when you start to look at the operational scenarios that you use as a project status report. So for a user that does have access to ServiceNow and needs to get to the record, you want the ability to go to the status report itself or to the project record itself if you need to make updates to the data or see more of the data that isn't included. So we can open that, but just to show, kind of tease some of the other operational scenarios, sometimes, your audience are stakeholders in the business that either don't work in ServiceNow on a day-to-day basis or don't have the fulfiller license access. So we can serve a summary page up to them that just allows them to view the status report and not, have that link to the underlying record. But just so you can see it, we'll choose that card style layout. And in our demo instance, that's kind of an absurd amount of projects to show in one page. So let's start to condition this down. So we've got a condition builder here where we can essentially just pre-filter the view that we're going to get. So let's say we have a stakeholder who is only interested in the compliance portfolio. And actually, we don't want to do and, we want to do or the operations. So that gives us 8 records. That's a much more reasonable set to work with. So that's already set up, and we can click save. And as that generates, we can just kind of think about that functionality and start to tease other operational scenarios. So stakeholders in the business, you could create multiple summary pages that are just geared towards a certain set of stakeholders for specific portfolio. What you'll see as we generate, we can also add filters to these pages after the fact. So a lot of times a PMO will want, maybe even a less detailed status report, but make it available to the whole organization and let them kind of find what they want via self-service. So, our page is generated here in our nice card style layout. You can kind of start to see those post, summary page filters, which we'll add in a second. But the first thing we kind of want to see is, what does this look like for a given project record? So let's open it up for a different project than what we were using in the editor, the implement conversational interface project. And what's really cool is that standard that we just built in a couple of minutes is now produced for the latest status report for this project. And what we didn't touch on in the editor is we actually have a second page on here too. So, an endless debate in the status reporting conundrum is, how much can you fit on a page while still making it consumable and valuable? And some, customers choose to list out some risk issues, decisions on the first page. Others make sense or choose to use a right act chart or a set of counters there, and then just add a second page that has more detail. So a lot of flexibility there. We have portfolio updates that could span, many, many more slides, depending on the amount of data you present in those. So now that we have the status report, we can start to touch on some of the operational scenarios and functionality we provide to accommodate them. And the first is going to be kind of in that sharing and distribution category. So we can view and present this directly out of the browser in a meeting, either in that view or in the full screen mode. But what we can also do is share this view specifically with a user, group, or role in the system for users that don't have that fulfiller access but can still log into ServiceNow to submit tickets. We can just toggle that, share with all logged in users, and then they can come to the URL and see it. But what we can also do is download. So if I click the download, you can see we have the option to go to PDF or PowerPoint. So if I just click that, it kicks off a download directly in the browser where it's going to send me to, send me a flat file as a PDF or PowerPoint. Now, what's really cool about this approach is that we're in the system here for the editor process and the design process. So if I make an update as a PM, like in the system, all I need to do is click the refresh, and then I can re-download. So it really limits the amount of manual editing that you're ever going to do in PowerPoint. Still necessary to get to PowerPoint to either combine with a broader slide deck, or you have a stakeholder that just really is kind of a stickler on that flat file. You can get there, but really limit the manual work it takes you to get there. So that starts to touch on some of the sharing and distribution aspects of this, but some other operational scenarios we'll encounter are, something like a steering committee meeting where maybe we're presenting to a committee for a specific portfolio. So we want to be able to get all of the status reports for the projects within that portfolio and bundle them together. So we might want to add a filter for portfolio. So we'll just call that portfolio, find that field that we want to make filterable, click save. We now have a filter. Let's say we want to be able to filter off of status as well. Maybe in our steering committee updates, we only present on the red projects. So we'll add a filter for that. And just for fun, we'll add project manager as well. So we can see some, a little bit of combination use on the filters. So we now just added those in a couple of clicks. So if I exit out of that, I can actually start using them by, just clicking that action in the top right. So, let's say compliance steering committee meeting is coming up and we just want to, present on the red projects. Click run, and we have a nice filtered set there. Go back over into our project status hub. And I'll show you what a set looks like in a bundled format. We'll go to view all summaries. And so this is going to show me all of the summaries that I have built, for previous demonstrations or events. So we'll just go to, actually, we'll go to the editor in this one. Actually, there's some pre-filters on it. We'll go to the editor on this one. And you'll see you actually already have a set created here. So I can select that set. And then I'm going to get a couple of options. I have the option to open this set in the viewer itself or create a view from the set. So the difference in that would be if I'm ready to present, I could just open these up in the viewer and it's going to bundle them together as a one presentation with multiple status reports. Let's say I want to add a title slide. I could create a view out of that set here. So two different options if you need to add an additional slide or additional, data points to a presentation like that, or if you just need to present on your status reports in that meeting, you can open it up in the viewer directly. Now, some of the other things we could do are, once we've created a summary page like this, we could serve it up to stakeholders to use via self-service. So we showed the ability to add filters for end users to use. What we could also do is add it to a collection. So, maybe the IT PMO or a certain portfolio team just wants to make a collection that includes, status report each, month that you put one together, as well as just some self-service dashboards. You could create a collection here to serve that up and just add a summary to it, right? So IT PMO, we can update it, and then it's going to add it to that collection. And so we've seen a lot here. The last operational scenario that we see is pretty common in terms of a request from PMOs is really to make these as accessible as possible for executives and busy stakeholders. So for that, I'm actually going to jump back over into the slide deck here and just show a screenshot of what this can look like. But again, based on the client, it can look a little bit different than this. Is an automated email that goes out once a week to all of the named stakeholders on a given project. So I'm a stakeholder, I get my email once a week that has a little message from the PMO, and then just lists out the projects that I'm a stakeholder on, a little bit of high-level information on status, et cetera. And then if I click this link, it takes me directly to the status report in the system. Or if I click the link at the bottom here, it'll take me to my summary page with all of the projects that I can use via self-service. So when you think about how to operationalize this, it's a question of what are the common scenarios, but also what are the scenarios and experiences your sets of stakeholders want and the customers of your PMO and portfolio teams, what do they want? And we've seen a lot. I see a couple of questions that have come in throughout the presentation in the Q&A. So we're going to go to Q&A next, but just a couple of points we'll mention as we get towards the end of the webinar here. A lot of the times when we show, some product like this, one of the first questions is, can we try it in our instance with our data? And that is definitely something we offer. It's via the ServiceNow store. You can go find us on the ServiceNow store, just search VividCharts data engagement and request a trial there, or you can go to vividcharts.com/try and we can help you get that set up. Something else we wanted to mention, if there are any folks that are adjacent to the ITSM team in their organization, we have a similar set of solutions coming out for change management. So we're going to be doing an event for an initial round of feedback on those on 12/7. So we'll be sending out a communication on that. And what we're really looking for is like early users to help, improve the offering as quick as possible. So we're going to be sharing more on the problem we're solving for the change management process in that, but also showing the product itself and really seeking early feedback. So mention that. In the month of November, actually coming up on the 21st, we have a giveaway going on for any new followers of our company page on LinkedIn. Just go and follow that page and go to vividcharts.com for /giveaways and submit the form. And you'll be entered into the contest to win a new Apple iPad. And then lastly, if you just kind of want to explore on your own based on what you've seen today or some of the other offerings piqued your interest, our website has walkthrough videos that are a little bit higher level than what you saw today. So you can find those on our website. And with that, I'm actually just going to open up the Q&A menu here, and we'll look at a couple of these and just answer them live. And okay, so the first one, will paginate include all of the text or will it truncate the text? So the paginate is going to include whatever text you can see on the screen, plus what you would see by scrolling. So if it's truncating horizontally, it's not going to paginate sideways, but that is a good idea. So that's something we'll kind of make note of on how to tackle that. But that's a part functionality question, but also part design question on if you have a description field that's going to take up more more real estate than you have in that given row or column, maybe you want to think about a little bit of a redesign, but great question there. So the next one, does this work the same in the fields as far as scroll bars so you can scroll up and down in each field? So the field selector chart does scroll up and down. So we didn't see it in the demo today, but it's not uncommon for, a status report field or an executive summary to span further than what the chart type shows. So those chart types will scroll if that happens. And we're continuing to get a few more. Radio buttons can also be configured as clickable too, like the RIDAC log button, so you can click and navigate to the record. Yes, so that's something we did see in the configuration. I didn't call it out because we use those a little bit early in the editor process, but those field selector charts do have the option to be clickable as well. All right, and at this point, just want to encourage you all. We'll hang on the webinar here for as many questions as you all want to submit. Last thing I'll call out as we give everybody kind of a last chance to submit any questions that come to mind. We are doing a promotion on demos booked in the month of November, so still a little bit of time left in that. And if you attended this webinar, we have a discount, for you as a part of that. So reach out to us. We're going to drop a link in the follow-up to book a meeting directly on my calendar, so we can kind of walk through this through your organization's lens. So that's just a little bit of an extra incentive for our attendees today. And I'm not seeing any more questions coming in on the Q&A. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And actually, we did get one. How is the VividCharts license price per user license, instance license? So it's a little bit of a combo of each of those things. The biggest factors are what parts of the product are you wanting to use? So you saw the project status hub today, and there's other hubs. So it's the biggest factor is which of the apps are you going to want to use? But that's something we could definitely, cover on a session individually with you who put the question in, and anybody else that kind of wants to go to that next step and understand how the licensing works. And since we did see that one trickle in, we'll just leave the webinar up for a little bit longer in case there's any other questions out there. But if you're dropping, really appreciate you joining us today. Again, we would love to hear your feedback on what you saw today, have further conversations. So don't hesitate to get in touch with any questions.